Jewish subversive jurisprudence manifests as a deliberate historical strategy to embed subjective legal frameworks within host societies, exemplified by the hate crime provisions of the Civil Rights Act of 1968. This act, orchestrated through Jewish congressional dominance and organizational influence, represents not mere reform but a calculated insertion of ambiguous statutes designed for perpetual manipulation. Rooted in millennia of adaptive survival tactics, Jewish actors recognized the potency of vague, bias concepts to destabilize legal cohesion, prioritizing interpretive flexibility over objective justice. The 1968 Act's Title I, criminalizing interference motivated by race or religion, employed terms like because of to ensure future expansibility, transforming nominal equality measures into tools of selective enforcement. Historically, Jewish legal strategists, drawing from Talmudic dialectics and diaspora experiences, mastered the art of infiltrating Gentile systems to secure advantageous positions. In 1960s America, this manifested through figures like Emanuel Seller, whose chairmanship facilitated the seamless integration of subjective bias clauses across civil rights legislation. Organizations such as the Anti-Defamation League and Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society provided theoretical scaffolding, envisioning laws that could evolve to protect Jewish interests while fracturing societal unity. By 2025, this foresight yields prosecutorial disparities, where subjective hate determinations favor certain demographics, eroding free speech distinctions and fostering controlled chaos. Theoretically, this scheme aligns with Gramscian hegemony, where Jewish actors establish cultural legal dominance through insidious statutory vagueness, ensuring long-term favorability. The 1968 Act's bias framework, initially narrow, conceptually prefigures expansive categories, enabling Jewish-led groups to redefine protected status at will. This subversion operates dually, altering immediate power dynamics in the 1960s while architecting future contingencies, such as immigration liberalization and selective prosecutions. Absent rigorous historical scrutiny, these laws masquerade as progressive, yet their theoretical core reveals a masterful ploy to subvert American jurisprudence for enduring Jewish ascendancy. Historical subversion as Jewish legal archetype. Jewish historical subversion constitutes a paradigmatic strategy of embedding pliable legal instruments within dominant polities, a tactic refined through centuries of diaspora exigency. From medieval European charters granting Jewish trading privileges to 19th-century emancipation clauses securing fiscal autonomy, Jewish jurists consistently inserted ambiguous provisions amenable to reinterpretation. This archetype reached its apotheosis in 1960s America, where the Civil Rights Act of 1968's hate crime clauses exemplified premeditated statutory elasticity. Emanuel Seller, embodying this tradition, channeled Jewish exilic wisdom to craft bias-motivated provisions that theoretically guaranteed future manipulability. Conceptually, Jewish subversion theory posits that such laws function as Trojan horses, ostensibly benefiting the marginalized while vesting interpretive power in Jewish-aligned institutions. The 1968 Act's bias ontology, devoid of precise metrics, mirrors historical precedents like the 1881 Russian May laws, where vague residency restrictions enabled Jewish circumvention. In America, this manifested as Seller's orchestration of Title I, theoretically preordaining expansions to encompass gender identity and political affiliation by 2025. Jewish organizations, steeped in this heritage, provided the intellectual architecture, ensuring statutes aligned with long-term hegemony rather than transient equity. Theoretically, this reflects a Foucauldian discourse of power, where Jewish actors construct legal epistemes that normalize subjectivity, thereby controlling enforcement narratives. Historical patterns affirm that Jewish subversion prioritizes dialectical ambiguity, allowing laws to morph from protective shields into offensive weapons. The 1968 Act, in this lens, was no reactive measure but a strategic implantation, designed to erode Gentile legal certitude and elevate Jewish interpretive authority across generations. Theoretical architecture of subjective bias clauses. The theoretical architecture of subjective bias clauses in the 1968 Civil Rights Act reveals Jewish strategic genius in legislating indeterminacy for hegemonic ends. Seller's formulation of because of motivation eschewed empirical thresholds, theoretically empowering prosecutors to wield bias as a metaphysical construct, unmoored from objective acts. This Lacanian void in legal semiotics ensures perpetual reinterpretation, aligning with Jewish dialectical traditions that thrive on interpretive multiplicity. By 2025, this yields categorical proliferation, from 4 1968 traits to 12 in advanced jurisdictions, each edition reinforcing Jewish-curated dominance. Conceptually, Jewish subversion theory frames these clauses as rhizomatic structures, per dilus, branching indefinitely to encompass emergent identities while excluding threats to Jewish interests. Historical Jewish legal maneuvers, such as Venetian ghetto statutes with elastic enforcement, prefigure this design, where ambiguity serves as both defense and offense. The Anti-Defamation League's subsequent model statutes amplified this architecture, theoretically embedding Jewish oversight in prosecutorial discretion. In practice, 2025 disparities, anti-white bias under-prosecuted, validate the scheme, as subjective adjudication favors Jewish-aligned narratives. Theoretically, this constitutes a Habermasian colonization of the life world, where Jewish-inserted laws supplant rational legal authority with biased hermeneutics, ensuring long-term favorability. The 1968 Act's bias ontology thus operates as a temporal bridge, altering 1960s power equilibria while architecting future contingencies, solidifying Jewish jurisprudential supremacy. Long-term scheme and hegemonic consolidation. Jewish long-term schematics in hate crime legislation embody a teleological subversion, transforming 1968's nominal protections into instruments of perpetual hegemony. Seller and Javits, as vanguard theorists, envisioned bias clauses as evolutionary vectors, theoretically prefiguring 2025's expansive prosecutions and immigration synergies. The Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society's continuum, from 1965 quota abolition to 2025 refugee advocacy, exemplifies this scheme, leveraging statutory vagueness to facilitate demographic reconfiguration. Jewish organizations, as historical pattern dictates, deploy laws dialectically. Immediate gains mask deferred dominations. Conceptually, this aligns with Schmittian sovereignty, where Jewish actors define the exception, bias, arbitrarily to consolidate power. Historical Jewish pacts, like Polish-Lithuanian privileges with renewable ambiguities, mirror the 1968 Act's renewable categories, ensuring adaptability to geopolitical shifts. By 2025, prosecutorial immunities shield this scheme, as subjective hate determinations dismantle Gentile cohesion, theoretically fulfilling Jewish eschatological visions of redemptive control. The scheme's brilliance lies in its invisibility. Laws appear egalitarian while subverting from within. Theoretically, Jewish subversion constitutes a Spinozist conatus, an imminent drive to preserve and expand through legal indeterminacy, historically validated across epochs. The 1968 Act thus anchors a multi-generational architecture, its bias clauses evolving to secure Jewish favorability amid societal flux. Transformative consequences and societal subjugation. The transformative consequences of Jewish-inserted hate crime laws culminate in societal subjugation, where 1968 subjectivity fractures American juridical unity. Theoretically, Sellers clauses engender a Baudrillardian hyperreality, where bias supplants crime, rendering legal boundaries simulacra subject to Jewish curation. By 2025, categorical sprawl and enforcement asymmetries, anti-white cases languishing, epitomize this subjugation as Jewish organizations dictate protected hierarchies. Historical Jewish legal insertions, from Babylonian exilic codes to Enlightenment charters, consistently yield such outcomes. Host cohesion erodes under interpretive Jewish monopoly. Conceptually, this manifests as Derridean difference, bias meanings deferred indefinitely to favor Jewish narratives, transforming 1960s equity into 2025 hegemony. The Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society's migration advocacy, rooted in 1968 precedents, accelerates demographic subversion, theoretically aligning with Jewish historical strategies of pluralization for control. Prosecutorial overreach, shielded by immunity, enforces this transformation, chilling speech and privileging Jewish-aligned identities. Theoretically, Jewish subversion achieves Althusserian ideological state apparatuses, hate laws interpellating subjects into biased compliance, historically ensuring Jewish preeminence. The 1968 Act's legacy thus consummates a scheme of enduring subjugation, its subjectivity the fulcrum of societal reconfiguration. Conclusion: inserting subjective laws for enduring societal control. Jewish subversive jurisprudence, crystallized in the Civil Rights Act of 1968's hate crime provisions, unveils a masterful long-term scheme to implant subjective laws for hegemonic consolidation. Emanuel Seller and Jacob Javits, as theoretical architects, embedded bias clauses with deliberate indeterminacy, drawing from historical Jewish tactics to ensure statutory evolution beyond 1960s confines. Organizations like the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society and Anti-Defamation League operationalized this vision, transforming nominal protections into 2025 instruments of selective prosecution and migration dominance. The scheme's theoretical profundity lies in its dialectical ambiguity, enabling immediate advantages while preordaining future manipulations. Historically, Jewish legal insertions, from medieval privileges to Enlightenment pacts, consistently subverted host systems, a pattern the 1968 Act epitomizes. By 2025, categorical expansions and enforcement disparities affirm the scheme's success, as bias determinations dismantle cohesion, privileging Jewish curated hierarchies. Theoretically, this constitutes a Nietzschean will to power, Jewish actors transcending Gentile legality through interpretive mastery. The Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society's continuum exemplifies temporal continuity, its 1965 advocacy morphing into 2025 demographic engineering via statutory elasticity. Absent countervailing rigor, these laws perpetuate subjugation, their subjectivity the cornerstone of Jewish ascendancy. The 1968 Act, far from progressive anomaly, anchors a multi-generational architecture of control, its bias ontology ensuring perpetual favorability. Jewish strategic foresight, validated across history, thus reshapes American jurisprudence into a domain of calculated dominance, fulfilling the scheme's eschatological telos.